After just witnessing the greatest World Cup we've ever seen and finally seeing Lionel Messi cement himself as the GOAT of football with the most insane final ever, it's easy to understand why this sport is the most popular sport in the world. And what makes the World Cup so special is that the World Cup is the most prestigious trophy there is in all of sports. The one trophy that every player dreams of winning, the trophy that so many people wish they could live for their country and be that guy that etches his name in the history books as one of the few people on this planet to be able to touch that gold trophy. Every country wants to win it, but one country's been getting closer and closer each tournament, getting better and better but keep falling just short. They're missing something that the bigger nations have, something that lets them have the edge of the rest of the world. That one special player at superstar level that can take the game by the scruff of the neck and push them over the edge when they need someone to step up the most. Portugal has Ronaldo, Argentina has Messi, Brazil has Neymar, France has Mbappe, and there's so many more. This leads to the story where Japan ends up creating a project that will help them win the World Cup, and it's called Blue Lock. The concept of Blue Lock is after losing in the round of 16 in the 2018 World Cup, Japan's football team needs to reform and come up with a new way of playing football in hopes of regaining that competitive edge. The Japan Football Union gathers 300 of its best players in football and puts them in a battle royale to end up selecting the best of the best, which inevitably produces the greatest striker to help them win the World Cup. So basically, it's as if the government did Project Mbappe.
First session, yeah? Project Mbappe.
Typically in sports anime, it ends up focusing more on the collective aspect of sports and how they can win together because of stuff like teamwork. However, Blue Lock goes in the complete opposite direction and focuses more on the aspect of individualism and what drives their ego for them to be the best they can possibly be to help their team win. The psychological aspect of what it takes to be great is something I don't think I've ever seen being done captured as well as it has in Blue Lock. The main driving factor it uses comes down to ego. The biggest criticism I hear about this anime is that ego doesn't work because football is a team sport. The main misconception here is that there's a difference between egotistical and having an ego. We can see this with the best players in the world. They all have ego. Even players that are humble like Messi have an ego. Having that innate desire to be the best you could possibly be is why he's as great as he is. It's because being the best you could possibly be will always benefit your team in the long run. The constant self-improvement of both physical and psychological level is what separates good players from the great ones. The fact that the show focuses on one position isn't to show that the striker is the most important position on the pitch, it's probably the most decisive, but the main reason we're focusing on that individual area is to represent what that position means to them on a personal level. Not everyone plays the same position, plays it the same way. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. We can see this with players like Isagi, Nagi, Shigiri, Bachira, Boro, Kunigami, and even Rin. Understanding what makes a good striker isn't something that is fixed. However, it's to play it to your strength and still be effective. This side of the show is probably its greatest strength and what gravitates most people to, especially for people that play sports competitively. By focusing on one individual position, we're able to explore in detail how much that impacts the position on the overall game, unlike in most sports anime that focuses on the collective but in less detail. Blue Lock's main focus isn't actually on football. It uses the sports as an anchor to actually tell the story about competitive mindset. That's probably why a lot of football fans didn't really enjoy it or dropped the show pretty early on, because it bends the perception of what real football looks like, with lack of tactics or being over dramatized by adding, the typical anime exaggeration.
アイアンマイケル、その人だ。まずい、左ボディでガードを下げさせ、アッパーカット。マイケルの KO パターン。入ったアッパー。ちょっと。
It's fucking anime. Stuff like this always happens. I understand people don't like the cringy, edgy dialogue, but a lot of what they're saying is just extreme metaphors. Like, of course they don't have fucking demons inside of them telling them to shoot the ball. It's just a visualization of what Killer Instinct would look like. We've seen unrealistic exaggeration in all of sports anime, like Kuroko no Basket. Like these 16-year-old motherfuckers shooting full court, or even like dunking from like the halfway line, or even like when they go into the zone. It's just a visualization of what it looks like to be in the flow state. These things aren't meant to be taken too seriously, it's just meant to enhance our enjoyment of watching the show. The anime purpose isn't to give you an educational knowledge about the real game, it's to show you what it feels like to play it. The motivation of ego and what drives them to aspire to be the best is really important for characters, especially Isagi. When we initially meet him in the first episode, we can see that he has a chance to win the game, but he decides to pass the ball as he feels like he's the best option for the team. However, his teammates end up fucking missing his chance, so they eventually lose, which ends up meaning that he's out of advancing to the nationals. The disappointment and guilt consumes him, knowing that he had a chance to win the game, but he blew it because he was being unselfish, which means he ends up paying the price for this. And at that moment, he understands that being egocentric isn't always a bad thing, especially as a striker, because your number one priority should be to score goals, not because you want to, but the fact that you need to score. It's your job as a striker to do so. Your team has given you an opportunity, so they did their job. Now it's time to do yours and finish it, which leads to Isagi never making the same mistake ever again. That is what Ego is attempting to install in these characters. That is what Isagi was lacking before he came into Blue Lock, and now we've seen it evolve both in his skill as a player and understanding of the game. He learned more about himself in the short time he's been at Blue Lock and has grown so much more compared to if he never came at all. The philosophy and idea what Ego is trying to show isn't something that I think would completely work in the real world, purely for the fact that how complicated and unpredictable football can be. However, I do think the competitive mindset and using ego as a fuel to help you drive to be the best you can possibly be is something that is extremely important, and it can help people that play any sport, not just football, so that you're able to reach levels that only a few people can.
Nothing should bring you more joy than your own goals. Live only for that glorious moment. And if you can't, then you're no striker at all. Yoichi Isagi. I am a striker!